the best interest and the best possible price for their client. So where you're concerned as a buyer, do beware, the property that you do look at, it might look all shiny and clean on the outside, but you've got to understand there's always a reason why it's been sold in auction. And the reasons could be anything from the vendor being motivated, and they just want the certainty to have the money within that 28-day period, which is guaranteed from a legal standpoint of view. But on the other hand, it could just generally be the fact that there are issues which you may not be aware of, and this is the advantage of having a legal access to a legal pack, where the solicitor or conveyancer concerned will be able to go through the various elements of this. It could be various covenants or restrictions that are within the property or within the title deeds, which you may not be aware of. And it's always great to literally spot the snake in the grass before it gets you in the end, and just nip it in the bud. So that's essential. But when you do turn up at the auction, you've introduced yourself to the auctioneer, certainly do be confident, be very positive, but never ever let your ego take over. Because time and time again, you'll see this, whether you've been to the auction for the first time or you've been many, many times, where people, whether it's friends or brothers or cousins, or even rivalry members, in the property community, where they bid against each other. It's just the way the emotions do run in a room on the night of an auction. Discipline yourself, and one of the techniques, what you can do is, if it's your first time, once you've introduced yourself to the auctioneer, do let them know which lot you're interested in and which particular lots that you may consider bidding. Or if you're not going to bid, at least be honest with them and let them know it's your first time. I'm looking to purchase a property at auction, but this is my first time, and I just want to develop a relationship with you. Now, you could do this in your own time, outside the time frame when the auction takes place. Because bear in mind, you've got a room, particularly some of the larger auctions, you've got a room of literally a few hundred people. In some cases it can be running into hundreds. And the auctioneer has only got a limited amount of time to go through these lots before they move on. So it's important to create the right impression, certainly dress smart, be casual in your approach, but do sit at the back of the room, because you tend to find the most experienced investors and bidders tend to sit at the back of the room, and this is an opportunity for you to just observe what's going on in the room specifically, and you can spot the buyers who are bidding against each other and those early bids that do get the auction going in the beginning. But never ever be the first bidder. So be aware of your ego, never let that take over, but also never be the first person who's going to bid at the property at the auction, because you'll learn again in other videos and other trainings which I'll share with you as the reason why. Never bid first, let the bidding start in the room, and if no one bids, guess what you do? You don't bid. Have you heard that? Don't bid. Talk to the auctioneer at the end of the proceedings and let them know your interest. Give them your details, and again, if you've got your finance or you have a JV partner or you've got access to the funding, let them know. So at least, but again, it's foolish if you're going to tell them something that you have when you don't have, because it will certainly make you come across as being disingenuous. But at the same time, the auctioneers will probably recognise your face, especially if it's a local auction house. So it's important you're honest, you're open, and you're friendly at the same time. But during the sale of the auction, you'll find certainly people who are bidding against each other. You just need to observe and watch. But it's only when the gavel's about to go down, when it's going the second time round, that's when you step in and raise your hand and make sure that they're aware that you are bidding. Because from time and time again, many auctioneers will see people who maybe just waving at the frame, saying hello, or acknowledging a colleague or an associate, or maybe a neighbour who's also bidding on a property, or just being nosy. But it's important to keep your hands down, only put your hand up right in the air and make it really clear so they know that you are interested. And what you'll find, the experienced auctioneers, they will certainly confirm it sometimes if you put your hand up, just to ascertain that you are seriously interested and bidding for the property. Because if you're not, they'll probably move on to the next person who is interested. Now, another key element to this, when you are bidding on a property that you are interested in, to control your emotions and make sure you have a ceiling price in which you will never go over. because it's very easy to get carried away, and certainly I've done this in the beginning when I first looked at buying at auctions that property. I was never shown some of the skills and didn't have the skill sets and experience that I have now, and I don't want you to fall into that trap. So it's really important that when you do bid, be confident in your bid, but have a limit on your ceiling price. And it doesn't matter whoever, whether it's Mr. Singh or Mr. Jones who's bidding against you, just keep calm, and when you're back of the room and you can observe everything that's going on right around you, what you'll have is control. And by having that control, if nobody bids on that property, you can speak to the auctioneer, as I mentioned to you already, and you can let them know, and they will contact you, or they'll be able to discuss with you upon the night of the auction. Now, during the bid process, what you will find, until the auctioneer reaches a reserve price on their ceiling price, a reserve, they will have, they have people who will bid in the room who will sometimes use off the wall or fictitious bids. So they'll bid you against a room. So say Peter is in the room and he's bidding 10,000 and the reserve is 25. They'll sometimes bid you against the wall, bid Peter against the wall, excuse me. So at least they can bring the ceiling price closer to the reserve. Once it comes into the reserve is reached, you will know about it, because the auctioneer will actually call out or will suggest that it's now in the room. In other words, it's now reached the reserve price of the vendor or the client in question, and then it's priced to sell. So it's important to listen and take note of what's going on in the auction room. And when it's your first time, just pop along, go to your local auction house, and just find out, the activity and what's going on. And when you speak to the auctioneer, you'll get a good, clear indication as to what's selling, what isn't. But ask the right questions, and you'll have the answers, and that will help you. Now, just moving forward, so you do get the bid off the wall bidding, which I have suggested, but then what you'll find is, once it's reached, and it's perfectly legal and legitimate what they use as a technique, but it's just a technique which, if you only know what you know, and if you don't know it and you're in the auction room, you won't know otherwise. So, I hope you find that useful. But what you'll also need to note as well is, once the hammer goes down, you need to make sure that you have brought with you your driving license or passport, and also you have a utility bill. This is to identify and verify your identity, and also just to make sure that when your details are passed on to the solicitor or conveyancer in the room, once you've won the bid on that particular property that you're purchasing, that you have your checkbook or your banker's draft to make that 10% deposit commitment, which is a statutory requirement by the auctioneers. I mean, once upon a time, I remember when we purchased one property, we did not have the necessary survey done. It was a property that we really wanted, didn't have the experience, and we bought it. We had the 10% deposit, but we didn't even know how to go about it. So we actually spoke to the solicitor. I actually remember when the auctioneer gave a lift in the car, drove us home, where we actually wrote the cheque out, presented it to him, and he went off on his own travels. Everything was tickety-boo. But not having done the research and the pitfalls that we fell over that 28-day period, the stress it put and the implications, where we nearly lost the house of our dreams at that time, which was paramount. I don't want you to go through the same experience, so it's really important to take note and hone in the information that you're taking right now. And, write a few bullet points if you have to. There is some absolutely amazing and fantastic opportunities out there, especially buying at auction. There's some great deals to be done, but you've got to bear in mind the houses will be ugly, they may be smelly, they'll certainly be empty in certain cases. There'll always be an issue or a problem with certain properties, but at the same time there are some perfectly clean, habitable houses that you can purchase for yourself, to live in with your family, or to buy it and trade, or you may even consider buy it and renovate with a view of letting out. But with the summary of this information, it's important to do your research, do your checks, make sure you feel satisfied. If you're not prepared to take the risk, then simply don't put your hand in the air and start bidding, because you'll literally, it will be embarrassing for you. But at the same time, auctioneers do certainly, they do shy away when people, they do make themselves look foolish. At the same time, you don't want to have that embarrassment. So, be professional, be smart, but the arrogance, certainly, keep that where it needs to be, behind doors, because auctioneers don't need to see that. All they want to do is they just want to sell the lot on that evening and let the competitive nature of the room dictate the price. And if you don't buy a property, that you fall in love with and you've had the surveys done, don't go doing what some other people do in the room. Start buying a property where you've bought it blind without even looking at it and get it surveyed. You know, at least do your research, because what you'll find, a professional investor will conduct the research, or at least delegate to somebody who's a professional who can carry out the necessary checks before they actually go into an auction room or do telephone bidding, which I mentioned to you already. But you know, I wish you best of luck. You know, do let me know your feedback, how it's working for you, and you know, what, if you do require any assistance, you know, do drop me a message or let me know your comments, and I'll be quite happy to speak to you for any future auctions that you may be attending. Or you may want to come to a local auction house up north, and you just want something to give you a bit of guidance, to help you, a few pointers as to what you need to do in order to, you know, get that bid. Now, I've got lots of tips and techniques which I will share with you later on at some point. I'm sure we'll get the opportunity to meet. But I hope you found it useful, and I wish you best of luck in your journey in buying property, and you know, whether you buy and flip or buy and renovate. So good luck.